Orange biscuit. Oh, let me tuck it back here. Okay. Hey, kia ora. Helen Brown's here coming live from Sun City, Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast, episode number 1365. Woohoo! Today we're talking about stories of life. I like to write. I like to do a lot of creative writing and stuff. And when I was younger, in fact, when I find my book, I will share the stories with you. But when I was younger, I used to love, and I was in the Air Force. I joined the Air Force, the Royal New Zealand Air Force, when I was like 17, and I loved to write, and I could write just about anything at that time, except books. But my stuff was all short stories, all creative writing pieces. And it wasn't until years later that we're making the attempts on books and seeing where that goes. But I suddenly thought, stories of life. It just suddenly came to me, and so I was thinking, I need some. Sometimes you need inspiration, and you look around and you think, well, here's a pair of tweezers. What can I write about a pair of tweezers? And it could be something just as simple as going, well, they're mainly green, but they've got a grey covering, and they've got the tip is on an angle. Squeeze and they bounce back. Just describing them, and you actually sit and you write and describe, and sometimes inspiration comes. It's like my friend told me when I said I can't get my story written, and she turned around and says, well, write down it's a dark and stormy night, and I went, really? And so I ended up writing the first chapter for the book and making the sorry, my desk piece is not going back to get it as it should. There we go. And making the weather the main character, which I thought that was pretty cool. I managed to make the weather the main character. But there's an inspiration all around us. It can be something as simple as there's different like conversation starters that you can do. Why not use those as writing prompts? There's books that have all of that in there. And then I was thinking, this AI stuff and seeing what that let's see what that comes up with. And so I've started doing that as well and going in there, give me 30. What did I tell it to do? Hang on, I'll tell you in a second. I told it to give me 30 creative writing prompts for short stories on life. And so it did. It gave me 30. And it looks like none of them are having a quick glance over them. None of them are repeated. Write a story about a person who discovers a secret about their family that changes the way they see the world. And I saw that first prompt and I thought, oh my gosh, we see this a lot in genealogy, where a family will have one idea or will believe one story about what had happened, but doing the research, we actually uncover that one wasn't quite true, but this one over here was, and it can change their perception on things and how they see things. So I thought, well, that one can actually apply to, would apply to real life and real situations in doing that when you're looking at genealogy and researching that. So these writing prompts are sort of like, okay, I'll just go to, what's that thing called? Wheel of Names, and you type in numbers 1 through 30 and you spin it. But there are like random number selectors as well that you can go to and online, and you go and but I just happen to remember the Wheel of Names. But I know that there's random ones that it will randomly throw dice for you, or it will randomly, you tell it what the range is for the numbers, it will randomly pick them for you, things like that. And so, that's a thought. Anyway, I just had another thought for something else. Hang on. This is why you always have pen and paper handy. You never know where the next idea is going to come from. But taking these prompts and not only just going and writing a fictional short story piece about them, but also answer the question from your perspective in life. Like that first one we just said, write a story about a person who discovers a secret about their family that changes the way they see the world. You could give that to somebody who is researching their genealogy and get them to answer it in a real life perspective. So all of these questions here about short stories on life, you can take them Write a story about a person who has a life-changing experience while traveling to a new place. You can apply that to things in life. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. When I saw some of the stuff that was on that list, I thought this is pretty cool because I can write fictional, or I can write true stories, or I can write fictional stories. And maybe I could do a hybrid of both, that it ends up being in the fiction side. You have enough truth in there, but there's also a lot of fiction in there as well. And then I was sort of like, well, maybe that's what's stopping you from writing your book, because you don't want to get too real with the emotions. And I'm like thinking, yeah, that could play a major role in it and things like that. And so maybe we could do something else with that. But so it's interesting where you can find different things around that will inspire you. Like I keep this, don't ask me why, I keep this thing on my desk. I love playing with this thing. And you just tip it upside down and it does all of the little, one side's pink, the other side's blue. Just depending which one you want to have facing you. And it collects as the little balls down the bottom there. And so I just have that sitting on my desk, and we'll just let it run, do its thing. And sometimes just watching the way the stuff inside just floats down through the stuff that's in there, how the colored liquid floats through the clear liquid. It's sort of, it can spark some imagination and things when you start thinking about, oh, well, that kind of looks like this, or that kind of looks like that. And you've got teardrops falling, and sometimes they turn into hearts. And could tears be made into love, or tears can come from love, and boom, you've got a writing prompt. Now you can talk about how tears come from a place of love, because when you think about when you're grieving the loss of a loved one, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, whether it's a spouse, you're grieving the loss of a loved one. So a heart that, a tear that turns into a heart, showing that the tears are coming from a place of love. So you could write stories about that. So I was looking around going, there's so much inspiration around us. And sometimes the brain gets a little clogged when you're like looking at, here's an acorn. What can you write about an acorn? Well, the acorn grows into the mighty oak, something this big. And you've seen how big this is actually this pendant is actually the size of an acorn, and they actually use real acorn caps on top. So they've got the amber, and there is actually an insect in the amber there somewhere. You see bits of them. So they have the amber, and they've shaped it into an acorn, the actual size of an acorn, and actually put real acorn caps on top to make these pendants, which I think is pretty cool. You could write about, I always, whenever I see things like this with the amber, I always think of movies like Jurassic Park, where they took the DNA out of the things that were encapsulated in the amber. But it also reminds me too of, what was I going to say? Just totally escaped my mind. Oh, I know, Men in Black. When the cat has that galaxy around its neck, and it zooms out, and they keep talking about people being in other galaxies and stuff, and it zooms out, and there's this cat with the galaxy around its neck. And I often wonder that maybe there's a galaxy inside the amber. Who knows? Depends how creative you want to get. But I thought, story times of life, write short stories of life. You don't have to sit down and write the great book about your life. You could just do it in snippets. There's a great program. It's called Storyteller. And once a week, they send you a writing prompt, a question. I think it's once a week. Yeah, once a week, I think. And they they email you every week a writing prompt, a question about your life. How did you meet your spouse? How did you meet? So you can write, and then you type in your story of how you met your spouse and all that, and you submit it. Then at the end, and it goes for a whole year. So you get 52 questions a year. It goes for a whole year. At the end of the year, they send you your book, which has your story in it. You've already selected the covers and everything else, but they send it to you with it's a hardback book. All the pages are printed out, and it's your story. You can put photographs in there for each story and things. You're talking about how you guys met. Maybe you took a photograph on the first date. You put that first date picture in the book there, and it gets printed. So it's a really cool, easy way to write your story. You go, oh, I need to write my people down. Oh, you need to write your story. Get something like Storyteller. I think it's called Story. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that, Storyteller. And they will send you a question a week, and you just fill out the question. You know, who is your best friend? Who is your best friend in school? Are you still best friends with that person? What happened to them? You know, it just asks you a question about what was the first house that you lived in? What do you remember about the first house that you purchased? Did you ever purchase a house? Where did you live? Where did you grow up? What school did you go to? What was it like going to that school? And they have a whole bunch there of different questions that you can just sit there in your own time. You just type in your answer and you submit it to them, and they put it all into a book for you. They do all the formatting. They do editing as far as correcting grammar and spelling errors and punctuation. They do all of that for you, and they will insert, and if you attach photographs, they will insert those photographs, and every question becomes a chapter in that book. So you've got 52 chapters in the book. What a great way to tell your story. And it's not just sitting down like, well, okay, I'm going to sit down, got my pen, let's write my story out. I was born. You know, you don't have to do that. You get quite a prompt waking up. And it is amazing when you're doing that, you get these prompting questions about your life, how much you actually start to remember. Oh, I told you. Oh, and so you'll quickly write that story out as well as the one that you're supposed to. So you write down the other story as well as the one that you're answering the prompt for. And in no time at all, you can have a lot of stuff to say and a lot of stuff that you can leave behind for your family. You know, who was this person? Who is Helen Brahms? Well, read this book and you'll find out. You know, what was it like going when your husband passed? You know, and there's even things in there. What was it like when you lost your spouse? And questions like that. And did you own your own business? Did you work for a company? What company did you work for? What was it like working for them? What did you manage? What type of company were they? What products did they sell or manufacture and sell? You know, a lot of questions like that, so that you can write out these little chapters, but they're open-ended questions so that you actually write, which I think is pretty cool. So stories of life can be fictional or they can be true. It's all up to you. Ooh, it rhymes. But I love writing stories. So yeah, the Storyteller one, I will give you a review on that one in a year, because I'm actually going to, I'm thinking I might, it's at a might stage right now. They've got a lot going on because we restart the house hunting this week. We've had a 2-week hiatus. It's been actually, we've had 2 weekends off. The last 2 weekends have been off. So it's been 3 weekends since we last went house hunting. So we're going house hunting this weekend. And we have 2 to see on Friday night and like 7 or 8 to see on Saturday. And so I said to Ashley, I said to her, I says, I'm bringing my cooler and it's going to be packed with drinks and food to keep us going, because it's one straight after the other. There are a couple of places where instead of allowing the 30 minutes, we actually have an hour there because they're new builds. So they take a little longer to go through the model homes and finding out options and things like that. And do they have any that are ready to sell now? You know, are move-in ready. So we need to find out that sort of information as well. So those ones take a little longer. But thankfully, the cool part is that we have appointments on either side of them, so we have a reason to leave. Because sometimes when you're talking with builders, you could be there for 2 or 3 hours. So we thankfully have appointments either side, so we don't have to stay as long. We're just in. We want the information. We want to walk around the models. Do you have any that are moving ready right now? That sort of thing as well. So yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. And my regular dog sitter didn't have space to take Zeffie, so I've actually found another dog sitter who we're going to go and do a meet and greet tomorrow morning. And so she gets to see it. And she's, oh, what's she like around kids? I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I said, oh, she's great. I said, her regular sitter has a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2, and just turned 2. And I said, she absolutely loves the kids. She watches over the kids. She'll be wherever the kids are, she is, watching over them, sleeping with them, snuggling up with them. Yeah. And I said, but just to give you a fair warning, she's a little shy around males. We're working on it, and she's made great strides. But she can be a little skittish around males, a little shy and stuff. And she's like, oh, my husband will win that dog over. So I know she's going to a good place. So I get to see it tomorrow. I get to see their backyard and all of that, and she gets to meet their dog. And so they can see how they interact and that sort of thing too. So it's going to be fun. So kind of sad she's not going to the regular sitter, but there are times when your regular sitter can't take people, so you have to have backups. So we're testing a backup. I'm telling Zephy she's going to go meet new family, and which reminds me, we have to stop at the pet store on the way home tomorrow morning to get her more pet food. Otherwise, she won't have any food for the weekend. But anyway, so there was a quick story about Zephy and our house hunting expedition. So fingers crossed that this weekend a lot of questions will be answered. And that's it from us for today. But big but. Tomorrow night we're going to be on at 5:30 Pacific time. We're going to be on 30 minutes earlier because at 6 o'clock I have a course, an hour-long course that I'm going to be attending, and it's you can do it in person or you can do it online. I'm going to be doing it online because there's no way I could do that and then get over to wherever it's got to be and leave her alone. So I will be attending this conference online on training, but it starts at 6 p.m. So tomorrow evening we're going to do our live at 5:30, and Zephy will be doing her walk at 5, a couple of hours earlier. Actually, no, she could still go at normal time, because if it's only an hour, it finishes at 6. It starts at 6, finishes at 7. Yeah, we'll be able to go for a walk afterwards. But I may take her out as a quick break first, and then come back, and then because if we get in a discussion that goes, they finish the formal part, then we have discussions, the meeting after the meeting, then we can take her out for another walk later on. Anyway. That's stories of life. Everything you do is a story of your life. Whether you're finding a home, renting a car, going on a trip, going and visiting family, renovating a home. Everything you do is a story of your life. So take time to record it. Phones have recording apps on them. You can talk into your phone if you wanted to. You can get the little digital recorders. I don't have mine sitting here because it's up in the lanyard, up in my little pouch thing that goes around my neck. So there's different ways that you can record your stories while on the go, and then later on type them up or have somebody transcribe them for you. There's also programs that you can get that you talk into a microphone and it switches talk to text type things where you talk it in and it types it on the screen for you. So there's all sorts of tools out there that can help you do that as well. But stories of life are very important. They are great records for, especially if they are you've written your story of your life as true stories, not fictionalized ones, but as true stories. Then you can, future generations will have those records to look back on and go, oh, do you remember when Great Uncle John did this, or when Great Great Grandfather Pete did this? And no, I don't remember that. Well, look, it's right here in his book that he wrote, or his handwriting, his handwritten stuff. So take times to write stories of life. It could be something as I went to the supermarket today and this woman cut in front of me in line. I couldn't be bothered, so I just let her go. Or it could be like, this woman cut in front of me in line today, and you should have heard me go off at this person, blah, 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 blah. Remember, future generations are going to be reading that stuff. So think about your life and how it is going and things that you may want to change so you have a better story to tell, or you just want to carry on with the story that you have. I'm carrying on with the story that I have. It's a great story. It's I love my story. There are certain parts of it that I'm sort of like, but it's who I am. It is part of my story. It stays. It doesn't get. I'm not sanitizing my story. My story will not be sanitized. It will be quite colorful in places. It'll be quite boring in others. But, it's all part of my life and what I want my future generations to know about. But anyway, that's it from me. Have a super fantastic sparkling evening. We will see you back here, remember, at 5:30 Pacific time tomorrow night. Until then, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Hei konera.